Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Growing Up with Godzilla. This is my show where I have conversations with Godzilla fans about how they've grown with the character and franchise over time. My name is Donny Winter, and you have chosen to join us for yet another season. This is season 3 of the show, which is wild to think. But we have quite a few really awesome conversations ahead. And tonight, of course, we have another awesome conversation and a new guest on the show who I've not had before, and that is the iconic Majin's beard. Hello, my friend. How are you?
Doing peachy.
It's good. So we've never met in person, but we've connected
Nope.
through social media. I think we connected through TikTok, if memory serves me correctly. As a Godzilla fan, as a kaiju fan in general, like, you're a content creator on TikTok, which I feel like we don't talk about that enough. Like, I do feel like there's a pretty booming fandom like on TikTok. When did you begin gravitating toward TikTok as an outlet?
But well, it's just like I was like, well, first I'm associated with DKU TV. You've seen that around, right? All
Mhm.
around. Well, I do a lot of editing for them with Joseph and everything. So that's where it came from. First, I did I got TV. I did my first. I did music videos for that. And one day I made 65 Years of Destruction tribute to Godzilla, and it took off. I was like, wow, okay, well, maybe I'm onto something here, with my videos. And then I was very not, I did not like TikTok at all. But then I started thinking, I was like, well, I might be able to do something here. So I just kind of played around with it, and it kind of took off. And slow at first. It took maybe 2 years before everything boomed. I posted just one clip of a movie or a scene, and next morning my phone was over 200,000 people. And I was like, going, my phone's froze. What's going on? I look over, I have 28,000 followers. I'm like, what? I was like, come again?
Wow, that is amazing. That is amazing. I bet you that was a very surreal experience to have to
Yeah,
go through.
it made my anxiety go through the roof because there's so many people commenting. I was like, whoa, slow down, slow down.
Mhm.
It's over. My channel boomed over the Guyver. That's what took it off. And then when people started seeing I have Godzilla content on there, it started going up. So my most popular videos on there is Guyver, Ultraman, and Godzilla -1 blew it up too. So yeah, I mean
Wow.
it's slowed down. It's slowed down because we get those fake profiles, they get deleted, and so
Yeah.
it'll go up and down and stuff like that.
Well, there's always lulls, right? But no, like, I think that
Yeah.
TikTok, like, I know not everybody is a huge fan of TikTok. I personally enjoy TikTok. I think that it was kind of a learning curve for me at first, getting used to like the setup of it. But I think that it makes content far more accessible for people than other platforms as well. So no, that is really exciting. And I think that um like the video creation, the editing, like, that's such a huge and under discussed artistic area when it comes to expression as a fan, right? So we'll probably have more conversation about that as the episode goes along, but that is really exciting. So obviously we have been brought together here to have a conversation about your history as a Godzilla fan, right? So I want to know, how were you first introduced to Godzilla, like all the way from the beginning? Share your story with us.
Well, like the first Godzilla content that I was discovered to, my parents introduced me to, which is their demise, because um, it's like in 80, like the Return Godzilla 1985 came out, and I was maybe 3 years old. I was born in '83, and that was the earliest memories. Like Return of Godzilla and Godzilla King of the Monsters were the very two first Godzilla movies I've ever seen. Which is kind of weird because it's like I grew up with the two darkest Godzilla films of the franchise so far, except for -1. But I would sit there before I go to my babysitter's house. I can remember these stuff. I would not move until Godzilla fell into the volcano. And Mom's like, "Don't, we gotta go, we gotta go." I was like, "No." She knew what was going to happen. I cried.
Oh,
I, would,
oh,
I was
she
like,
was
"No."
like, she was like, I need to get this
She
situation taken care of.
she knew what's going to happen because when I heard that screech at the end, I was like, she said, "Go, go, go." And so that's what that's my
Oh,
first introduction. And then being growing up as a young Godzilla fan, in the early late '80s, it's like you didn't get to see the stuff very much. So as you grew older, it was very hard to find. You would only find them in the rental stores and everything. And I would go to Curtis Mathis, is like a electronic store slash VHS store where you rent your movies and everything. And so I started discovering Mothra versus Godzilla and Invasion of Astro Monster
Mm.
and stuff like that. And that's when it started growing on me. And then I started seeing at the very end of those videos, like you seen at the end of those old VHSs where they start having those previews of the upcoming Godzilla films that are releasing. I was like, what? We can own these now? Because I
Mm-hmm.
remember I would used to take two VCRs and override the copyright by taping the little square on the VHS tape and record off the other VCR onto a blank tape all the Godzilla films that I've rent. And that's how I owned them at the time. And then Walmart started pushing them out, and so I would start seeing War of the Gargantuas, Rodan, Godzilla
Mm.
King of the Monsters, and that's how it all began. And after that, it was game over because back in the '80s we didn't have a TV in every house or a VCR in every
Mm-hmm.
every room, so we had a share TV, and I would fight my parents over the rights to watch my Godzilla films first. I was like, "Come on, no, I'm watching it first." And it's like, "No, we're watching our movies first." I was like, "No, we're not. We're going to watch Godzilla."
Oh, that speaks to me. I used to do that too. Oh my goodness. I really relate with the sobbing over the return of Godzilla because I used to sob all the time over the volcano scene.
Well, it's like that the death screech they added in the English dub is like horrific. And it's like kind of ironic. A few years back, I added the death screech. I re-added the Godzilla vs. Destroyer death scene with the ending to that, and I added the death screech in where Godzilla's heart exploded, and people was like, "You're breaking my heart." I was like, "I'm sorry, I
Oh,
had to."
yeah, that would probably destroy me. Well, like at the end of the Return of Godzilla, we didn't. I mean, it ends on the cliffhanger of sorts. We don't
Mhm.
technically know if Godzilla dies or not, but like in our kid brains, we're like, oh my god,
that,
like
that
our
was the end
idol
of it.
has died.
I remember specifically when I was like either second or third grade, in between that area. I was sitting there waiting for my mom to pick up, and the car lot, and I get in the car. She's like, "I got a new Godzilla film you never seen." I was like, "That's impossible." When you say new Godzilla film, because different covers, trick people. And I was like, and she's had it before. I was like, "I got a new Godzilla film you never seen." I was like, "Oh, the Cosmic Monster, that's Mega Godzilla, Mom." And she's like, "No, you have not seen this one yet." And so she gave me the VHS. I was like, "Godzilla versus Biolante." I was like, "This is interesting. A giant
Mm.
plant." I was like, okay, whatever. And I
You
didn't
were
know
like,
it
am
was
I
a,
sold? I don't know.
I was like, it's a giant plant. It's a rose fighting Godzilla. How good would this be? And I didn't know anything about it being a direct sequel to Return of Godzilla. And then when I saw the intro, I immediately got goosebumps. I was like, whoa! I was like, is this a continuation? And I was like, it is. And so when he came back out of the volcano, and I was like, okay, all right, I'm good. I'm in. I don't care how lame this looks. I like it. Biolante had to grow on me because he was a new monster that looked so bizarre and twisted, and I didn't know what to think of her. And then at the very end, I was going, "Oh, that's sad because that's an actual person's soul in this thing." It's like
Well,
this
yeah,
is more
I don't think
intriguing.
I don't think as a kid I fully understood or grasped that. I found Biollante to be terrifying. Like I remember I had nightmares when I watched that film because I had been so used to the Showa era. So when I watch it, I'm like, this tenderly squelchy, moist-looking creature looks terrifying with all the
with with
teeth. Like,
with the teeth in the middle of the rows, going, "I'm beautiful, but look at me."
right, I'm beautiful, but I also bite.
Yeah, it would be, but it was very fresh, and it was like one of the first monsters he fought in the Heisei period. If you think about it, though, the Return of Godzilla was actually Showa. If you think about it, if
True.
you want to be
If you look at the
technical,
historical periods, yeah.
yeah, it's actually Showa, and the very first Heisei was Biolante. But that's how I
Mhm.
look at it. People are like, no, 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 but that's how I see
People
it.
are like, no.
I'm like,
So okay. So that's like so like as you continue to grow, like how was your fanship shifting like as you grew? Like did you venture into like different websites, like in the late 90s, early 2000s, like message boards. Like I know, like for me, like I really got invested in the message boards and stuff like that, and those early online communities.
I didn't discover them, and it's like 1997 is when the internet started the boom, and I didn't have internet at my house, so my friend did, and so I would go in and see. First thing I did is hit Godzilla because I had no idea they created outside of Bandai when Bandai launched their Godzilla toys.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I knew I was like, this looks different. This looks like the actual movie footage from the commercials, and so I didn't think that it was actually a real movie. I thought it was just made for the commercials. And when I went to the internet at his house, I saw the posters for Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, Rebirth of Mothra, and I was going, wait, what? And I started, printing out these black and white posters and put them in a portfolio and like making a book of Godzilla films I probably will never see until Godzilla 1998 came along, and then they started releasing them through TriStar. I actually imported one movie from Japan. Well, I was Ghidorah, King Ghidorah, 1991. That was the first one I imported, and before they had the English dubs on there, so I imported Gamera, Guardian of the Universe, and then that movie because I didn't think there was any more, so I started to pick up on
Mm-hmm.
that. So yeah, and Barry's Temple of Godzilla was my first website I went to.
Yes.
That's
One of my first as well. Between that and like Rodin's Roost and
Monsters
Mothra's
Museum,
Shrine. My
that
parents
one.
found Mothra Shrine when I like on the computer after I was searching it, and they thought that I was worshiping Mothra at one point.
What you
And I,
was?
I was just like, I mean, I am a fan, so is it a far stretch of the imagination?
I was so happy when I heard through I was watching MTV Movie Awards and they gave Godzilla the Lifetime Achievement Award. When I heard that Shogo
Oh,
Tomiyama said we're in the time frame of making the Rebirth of Mothra, I was going, what? I was like, new Mothra movies for real? And I started
yeah.
downloading pictures of it. So I saw like I didn't know about the third film until like later down the road when Sci-Fi picked it up, and I was like, I didn't like the second one because it was way too cartoonish, but the first
Mm-hmm.
one was great. The third one was even more great because it had not Kaiser but King Grand Ghidorah. I'm like, why
Third
did
one
not
is top
Godzilla?
notch.
I mean, I loved it. I especially like the score. The score, the music is what in these movies, the music, the effects are what
Oh,
really pulls you in. If it wasn't for the music was ahead of its time during the
be
Godzilla
careful, because
series.
I could go on and on about like the Mothra trilogy music and the Godzilla music, because honestly, like when everybody, I remember when I was in like high school, like I had like a little like a cassette tape recorder, and I would hold it up to the TV to like record the music, and I would just listen to the music constantly.
That's what I kind of did when I started. That's how my editing actually started is through watching these movies because my parents got me a giant stereo for my birthday, and it was like giant speakers. It had six disc changers, and it also has cassette tape. But then my dad had a good idea of plugging in my movies into the stereo. I was like, well, if
Mm.
I can record on my VHS movies off the screen, why can't I record the audio through the audio cassette? So I started recording the scenes, like the action scenes from the movies, onto a cassette tape, and then I would go back to that where that scene began, and then I would sync them. I would try to sync all the audio to the actual scenes with no sound going in the background. So I would. That's how my editing, because there wasn't no editing machines to practice your editing on like you do now. My first
Oh.
introduction was through the old school way, where you had the computer monitor, and then you had this VHS thing where you put your tapes in, you take your footage off, and you
Mhm.
had to manually put the footage onto the computer, but with a little rotation device going. That's what I need. Reverse it. That's the scene I need. Reverse it. And so it's like
Wow.
that's how it all started. And then I got Windows Movie Maker, and I was like, I don't understand this. I'd rather go back to the old school analog editing. And so I would do editing in high school. I would do Godzilla edits, which no one's ever going to see because they got destroyed. And it's like
Oh.
like when you saw that video I showed you in Messenger,
Mhm.
that will never see the light of day because I can do it with sound clips from Instagram and stuff like that, but I can't. I want people to hear the audio, like the
Oh, yeah.
speeches, and that's why I'm working on one right now. I tagged you in one in the TikTok with the Ginza attack 54. I'm
Oh,
actually working on
yes.
longer. I'm going to work on a longer version of that. That was just a tease. But what I'm going to be working on right now is a longer version of that with audio, with from the characters speaking. I'm going to use the English dubbed, of course, make it a little easier.
Yeah.
So I'm going to enter cut those with the audio of the build up to the attack on Tokyo. And a lot of people, I'll argue this a lot, but in the original story of Godzilla, Godzilla came to Tokyo Bay because he followed the fishing vessels back to Tokyo Bay.
Mhm.
I mean, in that movie, he's just an animal. That's why Dr. Yamane was saying he doesn't need to be attacked. He don't need to be doing anything. And a lot of people was like, well, he uses a nuclear breath a lot. He destroyed Tokyo that way, but the only reason he did that because he was agitated.
Mm.
And if you watch the Japanese cut of the movie, you understand why he was so aggressive when he went through the electrical wires because they were wrapped with barbed wire.
Mhm.
And so it cut into his skin, and then with the military firing upon him, and then he's like, "Oh shit, I'm pissed off." So, and
Oh,
that's why
yeah,
he just
like
went on this rampage. At least just wrath of humanity because he was just there to go walk on the street saying, "Hey, what is this? I'm kind of hungry," and so he gets
right.
attacked. And so that's when his rage against humanity besides nuclear bombs. Like in Oda Island, they kept Godzilla from coming ashore to sacrificing villagers to him, so he won't come ashore. And they stopped it, and he came ashore. And it's just little things you pick up on as you get older.
Absolutely. No, I think that's one of my favorite things about rewatching some of these films is that you just see different layers. And I really love what you talked about the evolution of your editing skills. Like I think it's really cool to be able to look back at how things, you know, just built up and grew and how you got better. Often have the conversation. I used to write fan fiction a lot. And so like a lot of my like early fanfics terrible. But like as I grew, like as a writer, like it just kind of inspired me to love writing more and more and more and then it went on from there. So but it just goes to show you that like the things that we love, like the characters and franchises that we love, like they can really inform our skill sets and our creative outlets, which I think can be very beneficial. So, I want to know now, looking back through all of this, which Godzilla films would you say are your favorite now and why?
Well, the original will always be number one, just because it's so impactful. But as I was growing up more and more in my early late 20s, Mothra vs. Godzilla, Ghidorah, and Invasion of Astro Monsters are the three top Showa films of the series because it was at their peak, where
Mhm.
human characters and monster characters coincided both as the good stories. The monsters were
Yeah.
showing their emotions, and you have these awesome human characters that you won't get in the rest of the Showa films. I mean, they're more goofy, but you're more connected with these characters like Takarada's characters in all three films.
Yeah.
Invasion Astro Monster didn't stick to the human characters as good as Ghidorah and Mothra vs. Godzilla because Mothra vs. Godzilla was, I think, the first, well, not the first sequels to take place right after one after another, like Godzilla Race Again.
Mhm.
But in the Showa series, that's what stuck out. I love the Heisei series too, but to a certain extent. The two films out of that series would be Return of Godzilla and Godzilla vs. Biollante because they're the most well crafted, as in
Mhm.
visual and human characters. The rest of it, like Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, I would say is my least watchable movie. I don't hate any Godzilla film. I know the ones I don't watch enough of is Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla, and that's the only one. I just don't feel any gravitational against Space Godzilla. I mean, I like Space Godzilla's design, but the movie is just really bland.
Yeah, and it's
Especially,
much
it's like see,
longer. Yeah.
it's lazy. It's the most lazy to me produced one because it's like the effects wasn't as good. I mean, it started going downhill to me with the rebirth of not rebirth of Mothra, but Mothra Godzilla Battle for Earth. The quality
Yeah.
of the movie because when I first watched it that was the first Godzilla movie I saw on VHS after Godzilla '98 was released. And when Godzilla showed up, he looked so rubbery and stiff. The
Mhm.
motion in his faces was not there, but they fixed that problem in Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla.
See, I think the quality
He
started to decline in Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, but for me, story-wise, because, like, it
yeah,
kind
story
of
wise, yeah,
yeah, like, it started kind of I mean, not necessarily getting plot hole-ish, but, like, you could tell that they were kind of sidestepping certain things in the story just for the sake of momentum, and I was just like, "Ooh, okay." Still will watch them and enjoy them, of course. Yeah, like, 'cause, I mean, considering how much I love Mothra, everybody's always like, "Oh my god, Godzilla versus Mothra '92 is not your favorite." No, like, there are aspects I love about the film, but Tokyo SOS will always be, like, my favorite film that features
yeah,
Mothra because I just think that it really does the world building, kind of like what we were saying with, like, the Showa era, those 3 films you mentioned, like, they do, like, a lot of world building and connecting to, like, the other prior films and stuff like that. And I think that's what drew me to them a lot over the years. So now shifting gears and focusing a little bit more on the kaiju and human characters, like which ones are you drawn to the most and what draws you to them?
as human characters
Both
or the
kaiju
kaiju.
and human.
Well, I'm gonna go with the humans first. The one character I'm really driven to since I'm older is Dr. Serizawa.
Mm,
Um, he is a very tragic. He's more tragic than Godzilla in some aspects because he's actually been same difference. He was in the war. He was scarred by the war. He was also a prisoner of war, and the fact that like when I was younger, I didn't understand why he's burning his papers, and I didn't understand why he killed himself for no reason as a kid for no reason. But now that I grew up, I understood that he still had blueprints in his brain. He
yeah.
loved Emiko, but at the same time, he knew he couldn't love Emiko the way he loved her. So he wanted them to be happy, but he had to kill himself because to protect humanity from his ultimate weapon, he had to kill himself because they were going to come for him and get that information from him no matter what.
Right.
And so his character is so tragic, and especially when he starts saying bomb versus bomb, missile versus missile, and now a super weapon to throw against humanity. That
Yeah.
is the ultimate. That's when you know he made a decision that he was going to kill himself, and he knew what was going to happen. He's like, "All right, I'll do it just because you two asked me to." And then also the scenes of the chorus of the children singing the song "Oh Peace, O Light, Return to Us."
Yeah.
Um, that chord hit because he didn't know what he's going to do. He's conflicted. He's like, I don't know what I'm doing. I know I need to do it. I know if I don't do it, Godzilla's gonna come back and kill more people. And he's like, I just don't know what to do. And so he had this burden of the world on top of him. And that's, I
Yeah.
think,
Why you could like
that's why.
I mean, you could see him going through that thought process, and I think that's what made it so haunting. But I think that that's also what made that character so dynamic and interesting at the same time. Yeah.
And monster wise, I don't really know. Godzilla is the main monster everybody goes with, but I just don't know exactly which monster I would choose. It's such a hard choice because they're all so built well. But I would probably have to say Anguillus because he's the
Ooh.
underdog, and he was the first one to
Yes.
go against Godzilla, and he put his all into it, but he got deep fried and Popeyed and everything. But but I like how he doesn't give up, especially when he fought against Ghidorah. He's like he knew what to go for. He always went for the neck. He didn't go for anything
Mhm.
else. He always went for that damn neck because he's like, I'm gonna bite it. I'm gonna kill
He
you.
wasn't dumb. He was not dumb. He
He,
just
he chose
he
his
was
like
just he was just uncoordinated.
he's like that small dog that won't let go of your clothes. You pick him up, you try to shake him off, he won't let go. It's like but
Are you saying
but
that
yeah, I,
that Anguirus is the Chihuahua of the Godzilla franchise?
I mean he never let go. He went for the tail, never let go, and he went for the neck and never let go. And then Dora's like, "Get off me, you stupid animal, you peasant."
Oh, poor Anguirus. That's a good selection, though. That's a good
Mm.
selection, though. I think that a lot of people do gravitate to Anguirus as like the underdog, 100%. Because like I think that I know like early on, like I really gravitated to that because I felt like one when like dealing with day to day life as like a teenager. Like I was like, I really relate with this underdog dynamic that Anguirus has. Yeah.
I mean, I first saw him in Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, and I didn't know he was the very first enemy that he's ever fought, but I didn't understand why he got his mouth broken open, and I was like, I sure hope he didn't die.
Oh,
But I was like, the
yeah,
most painful. I was like,
that was a very visceral scene to watch. I remember when I was a kid, I was just like, I looked at my
see,
parents. I'm like, should I be watching this?
see, I still thought it was Godzilla at the time, even though his voice was, because I never saw Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. When I first saw it, I was like, okay, Godzilla has a different voice. It happens. And I didn't put two and two together until the suits look different. I was like, okay, that's not him. Okay. I was like, 10.
Right. So I think like if we pan out a little bit and think about like ourselves as individuals, right? How has Godzilla shaped you into the person you are today specifically?
Well, probably a little bit more stronger and more hard headed. But it shaped me as I wouldn't say be a better person, but it taught me to never let people tell you not to love something. It's like my
Mhm.
parents always said, "Hey, you're gonna outgrow it. You're gonna outgrow it. This is just a phase." I'm like, 4-year-old me is going, ha ha ha. Joke's on you.
Right. I've had many Godzilla fans share that, like, and the premise, like, I mean, honestly, the premise of this show is to reiterate the fact that we're always growing up with Godzilla because we're still growing as people, right? So we
Mhm.
won't like that's not a fad we're gonna grow out of.
It's also taught me how to learn how to love the visual effects aspect of it. That's why also instead of editing, also it's like if I had the money, I would recreate these things because as watching it, I learn through visual. So as I watch
Mhm.
these films, I start learning how they do it, and then ironically through Facebook, becoming friends with these people who make the movies. Now I
Yeah.
kind of have these broken. Even though I try to translate as best I could through Messenger, I Google everything as much as I can, ask them questions about how you did this, 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 this. And I was like, oh, that's simple. I was like, really? Some things that we think that's like, it's $100 million shot or a CG shot. It's actually just a GoPro in a low angle because there's a scene. I'm going to digress from Godzilla for a second. Ultraman Z.
Mhm.
There's a scene where him and Jeed was fighting, and there was this really intricate shot where they were going back and forth, and it's a very low angle, and they're going back and forth fighting this monster, and the camera's spinning around this area, and you think it's CG. I mean, it looked very CG-ish, but then I saw it, the making of it, about a year later. I was like, holy crap! Are you serious? It was just a GoPro in the middle of a rocky place, and with the buildings behind you, and you just had this little B GoPro, and I was like, holy crap! It's like this boggles my mind how good
Wow.
they're getting with these tricks,
Mhm.
and that's why the effects grow on me too. Because I would love to go out there. It's like in Daigaichu TV, I have a special every Halloween called Josh's Halloween Spectacular,
Mhm.
and I try my best to get people interested in help making it and get a little bit more money into it. But I want to show Zarkor and Kara, the sea monster. I want to show those
Mhm.
films, and I always like to make segments because it's fun. And I want to do a little segment of before the movie starts with a little tokusatsu. It don't have to be extravaganza, but I want to do a little trick there. And in between each one, it leads up to the end of the segment. So yes, beginning, middle, and end. And so that's what I always wanted to do, but it's like budget won't allow it because I don't want to help making these buildings. I know how to what I want to do with them. I know how to do the destruction part of it. Talking with Xenofauna, Jared from
I do,
Xenofauna, he does a
yeah.
lot of that. Yeah, I talked to him about some certain things, and it's inspiring, and so especially with stuff with leaf blowers. It's amazing what you can do with small things, especially Coffee Mate. You know, if you put that above a small flame, it creates a small explosion. So that's how they make those little small explosions.
I did not
Is
know
they
that.
use they put Coffee Mate in a canister, and they have a little flame, and they shoot the Coffee Mate out, and then you see the explosion come across
Ooh.
the face of the monster. That's how they do that crap. It's through that the Coffee Mate material. It's a flammable source, so that's how you
Like
get.
the
That's how
liquid
you.
itself.
Yeah, it's a, but it's not dangerous in small amounts. But if you get
I was
too
gonna
big
say
of
it's
amounts, it's gonna
making me
be.
question whether I should drink coffee cream.
Well, you can burn. Or you can also think about eating ramen noodles because you can burn that for fuel.
What is it doing to my interior? I think that's part of the whole. That's part of it, though. Like, part of our
Mm-hmm.
growth as artists, right? Like, we look at other people's examples and we see them break it down and we're like, wow, like, it doesn't seem larger than life like we think it does, right? It's
Mm-hmm.
actually far more straightforward than expected. And I think that's really a good thing that a lot of artists, writers, editors can take away. That's a good message that they can take away, right?
Now you go back and watch Sarkor. If you ever watch, you watch Sarkor, right? From
I have
the old.
not.
Check it out. It's either on Tubi or you can find it on YouTube streaming. It's a very bad giant monster film, but it's just fun to watch how they made it. Kara is even worse, but it's one of those films where you can just sit around with a bunch of buddies, have some drinks, and just enjoy the fact that they tried their best to
Did
make a
they
giant monster film.
a good try. I've been wanting to expand my kaiju horizons, so I will definitely check those out for sure.
I have a
Um
lot of suggestions for that kind of stuff. So yeah,
yeah,
even
for
China
like
has them.
yeah, don't hesitate to let me know those suggestions because I know like the other thing that I've needed to desperately branch into is Common Rider. I have not branched into that yet. I do love Ultraman. Have I seen all the series? I have not. That's another thing that I need to get done. It's on my list.
If I would suggest something, since you have not seen Kamen Rider yet, the newest one that came out, that was a anniversary for Kamen Rider Black. Check out Black Sun. It's very political. Some people don't like how they did it, but it's. I think you would like it for that aspect, what the message they
Oh,
portray in that series.
I love me some good politics from time to time.
Amazon Prime. If you have Amazon Prime, look up Mask. It would come over. I think either Mask Rider Black or Kamen Rider Black
Okay.
Sun. It's there. It's same with Shin Kamen Rider. I wasn't a big fan about that one. I'm just not a big fan of Ano's directing,
Mm.
really. But that's just me. But I did
Yeah,
not like.
that's fair.
I usually like anything Tokusatsu related, but it's like something about Mask Rider Shin was just like uh,
Mm.
cool effects, but I just could not get sucked into it. I mean, it does the original series justice. I know that, but it's just, I don't know, something
Something
did rub me the
doesn't
wrong way.
quite, connect. Yeah, that
It
makes
it,
sense.
it, it hit it didn't hit me like Kamen Rider Black. I grew up with Black and Black RX. Shin Shin is the first Kamen Rider who actually physically transformed into a monster. He was
Hmm.
the only monster besides Kamen Rider Amazon. But anyway, I digress.
No. No, I love it. I love it. So do you and your friends often get together and have drinks and watch kaiju films?
When I was living on my own at the time, yes, we would get together. Maybe when I worked at Walmart for like a long time, we used to come to my house. We'd pop in the Super Inframan from Hong Kong. He's the Kamen Rider Power Rangers knockoff. Very good one though. And we would sit around and just have us shot every time we see the monster with sneakers on. And, and every time the back of the monster, you can see the stunt man because the zippers come undone. So we took another shot every time, and then every time the villain, who's like a Rita Repulsa knockoff before she was an actual thing,
Oh, I
called
love
the
Rita
Wicked
Repulsa.
Dragon Mom. You're gonna love if you check out Super Inframan. Look it up. I think you will. You and your
You
fiance
know,
will love it.
I think we'll definitely check it out. I think that's another reason why I really love the Mothra trilogy as well, is because Belvira is very much Rita
Rita
Repulsa coded.
Repulsa.
Like she is
Yeah.
very much Rita Repulsa esque. So next question. As it goes, when it comes to like collecting, like Do you like? Would you consider yourself a collector? If so, like, what sorts of figures or things do you gravitate toward when collecting?
Well, in some sense, I consider myself as a collector. There's many definitions what you would call collecting.
Mm.
But I don't go out and buy these scavenging X plus figures because I say to myself, how do you afford this crap? I
I
applaud
can't
people
afford
who
it,
can
nor
get
do I
them.
have the space.
I have the Burning Godzilla. I have Bandai 54. I have Pacific Rim statue, and I have two Diamond Select statues, piggy banks. I have the 74 and the 1995 Godzilla
Mm.
bank. And I'm more of a cinema collector. I have over 1,000 pieces of movies in my collection. Ranging from like Godzilla. Godzilla opened the door to all sorts of cinema. Like I'm really big into kung fu cinema, Hong Kong action. I'm more a aficionado of kung fu cinema,
Hmm.
more than Godzilla itself. But Godzilla opened the door through that, through Chambara, from uh, different Japanese cinema to Hong Kong cinema to anything. You know, my horizon grew because of that, and then I started to get invested in like Power Rangers. Even though I hated giant mechs, I thought they were stupid. As I saw it, watched it more, it grew on me. And
Hmm.
so I started loving this, and then I got into 20 years later Super Sentai, and I saw Zoo Ranger for the first time in its original form, and I was like, wow, this is way darker than the Power Rangers are because in the series, the Green Ranger Mirai,
Hmm.
he's the brother to the Red Ranger, and the candle, the green candle, is the only thing keeping him in this world. He died like in the show. He died. He was in hibernation, and the landslide came and killed him. But this being from another dimension, like death, pretty much brings him back through this green candle. And so he owns a short
Mm.
period of time to do what he needs to do. He wasn't being controlled by Rita or Mandora. Um, he was acting on his own accord because he was sore at his brother. He brother up in the wrong way before they went to hibernation, and then when the candle went down, he died. He essentially really he got one off. He never came back,
Wow.
and and you got to see the Dragon Zord or Dragon Caesar go through mourning. He was sad. He was alone. He had nobody. And the other Zords, which they're all living beings, they're gods in the Zoo
Hmm.
Ranger show. They have voices, and so they ignored him. And so in one scene, he's coming over, he's wanting to be with him, and then they ignore him, and so he's kind of scuffles away, kicking rocks, moaning, groaning. And so that's what I like about that, Super Sentai and all that stuff. It's just fun stuff.
I love that Godzilla was the gateway, though. Like, I think
Yeah.
that Godzilla can be the gateway for like I know like I would have never gotten into Ultraman had it not been. Well, I don't know. Like my mom used to really love Ultraman when she was a kid, and she kind of like she would always mention Ultraman to me, and then I finally got into Ultraman like as I started getting a little bit older. But so I do have one final thought-provoking question for you. So we've been Godzilla fans for a very very long time, right? And I always like to
Yeah.
ask people, what advice do you have for Godzilla fans who may be new to the franchise or trying to find like their space in the franchise or in the fandom?
I say don't matter which direction you go, don't focus on whether you should start from the beginning, middle, or end. Just pick what gravitates towards you and what you find to be eye catching. And if it's not something you like, well, go to the next thing that's eye catching. Don't.
Mm,
I mean, people will give advice saying you should start from Gojira. Sure, that's a good point to start if you want to watch the darker stuff. If you want to watch
right.
something more lighthearted, do more later Showa stuff. It don't matter where you start as long as you start where you want to start.
Yeah. No, I think
So
that's got to be probably one of the most refreshing takes I've heard on that because like I mean even when I answer that question I always have like this elaborate structure like start here and then do this and but like being able to just hear like just go with whatever calls out to you like
mm,
that. I think that's important because I feel like the Godzilla franchise, Toku in general, has something for everybody, so long as they're
yeah,
willing to actually take a look at it and examine it, right?
a
So,
lot of people got pulled into Godzilla through Godzilla '98, like my
Mhm.
nephew. He's like, I was like, oh, what's your favorite Godzilla? He's like, that one where he runs like a T-Rex. I was like, oh, okay. Okay, that's where he started. That's good. That's good. But
Right.
all right, that's a good starting point, my boy. Now, which one do you want to go to next?
It's like you've just scratched the surface of Godzilla. So like now let's delve deeper, right?
Yep.
Oh my goodness. Now, like I do remember that a lot of people like I do feel like as much criticism as that film gets, it did reignite Godzilla for a lot of people, which I
Yep.
think is really important, and I think that it also deserves its, own place. I know people would disagree with me, but I do think it deserves its place in the pantheon of films. So,
It's not a horrible film. It's just like when you go into this movie, like the big giant campaign that they had, which you only see his feet,
mm,
his tail, his eyeball. It's like they built the hype, and me being a very big Godzilla fan was like in the theater going, ooh. And then when you see it in the very first opening night, you don't know what the monster looks like.
yeah.
And he comes out of the ground. Okay, I was like, all right, he came out of the ground, Godzilla versus Mothra, no big deal. And then I was like, what's this coming out of the ground? It's his chin. He had this ginormous Jay Leno chin that threw me out of the movie. It's like
Did you
Jay Leno makes the.
just Jay Leno?
It was just like his chin was so huge, and I was like, all right, that's just because it's up in your face.
Oh,
But
I can't unsee it now.
it's like the design, it was okay. It's like, but then that just honking chin that comes out Matthew Broderick like that. It's like seeing Jay Leno going through the skit in the MTV Movie Awards for Jurassic Park where he puts his chin through that window. It's just
Oh, that got me. Oh, that got.
you can't unsee it. Every time he's the Godzilla of Jay Leno.
Oh,
I mean,
I'm crying.
but he's a good design. He just needed to be more Godzilla like. If he like the animated series did where he's breathing
Mhm.
fire being Godzilla. If they did that, I think the movie would have been more successful
Oh,
because
the
breathing
animated series was so good.
that was super amazing. I preferred that over the movie, but
Oh, me too.
like I
I
said,
think that's probably the best. I think that's probably like the most popular takeaway from that part of the universe is that animated series. So,
yep.
oh my goodness. This has been such a fun conversation. I definitely would love for us to have more conversations in the future. So, the last thing that I always have everyone do, so Majin Spirit, would you like to share where people can find your stuff? Plug away.
Well, back in the day, you could have found it on Facebook, but people like to be jerks and report my videos for stupid reasons. So I shut down the page. I had over 1,000 followers on that
Mhm.
page a couple years back, and you can find me more on TikTok and Instagram. I'm on there. I post stuff, but I'm not very big on Instagram, so I just go there occasionally. But TikTok's more where I'm at. But TikTok's getting
TikTok
more
is where the
strict,
fun is.
and they're getting more stricter too. They've been flagging me for my edits, saying because I was in the creators program, and I would make my edits, and I would get a couple cents. Wouldn't make anything big for my edits. But now that they tricked me into going to a creativity program, they say my stuff's not original enough. So I guess I have to go in there and start getting a Godzilla mask and shaking my booty on live or something to
You know
to gain more
what?
followers.
Do it. I say do it. why,
Oh,
why not?
it's like
Get a
I was like,
get a
now I was
Godzilla
thinking,
onesie.
it just
I'd watch it. That sounds entertaining as hell to me.
get the Godzilla inflatables and start just bouncing around Kira Kafube.
Like a little Godzilla kaiju club.
Have a little strip pole there, and like would have Kong throw dollar bills.
Oh my god, I love it. This has been such a fun conversation. So, my friends, as you watch this, please go make sure that you go follow Majin Spirit both on Instagram and TikTok. And Thank you so much for joining me tonight, Majin Spirit. It's been
Yes.
it's been a hoot for me having this conversation. But so just remember, everybody, Growing Up with Godzilla premieres on the first and third Sunday of every month at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, relatively. And just keep standing tall. All right, keep watching the films, keep enjoying the content, and keep standing tall. Have a good rest of your night, everyone. Bye.